All right. Without further ado, let's get started. For anyone who has missed, oh, we on part. This is part four, I think. We're on part four. We're reading Star Wars Brotherhood. This book is absolutely fantastic. That was in between what Obi-Wan and Anakin were doing between episode 2 and 3, and it's like the beginning of the Clone Wars, really, right after Anakin gets knighted as a Jedi Knight. So far it's taking place in Cairo Moidia. There's been like a bombing incident in Cairo Moidia, and there's a lot of terror going on, and Obi-Wan's been sent to investigate to either basically like alleviate the ill will of the Republic, or find out the truth that it was the Republic the whole time. So yeah, this book has been fantastic. It's kind of going through what Obi-Wan and Anakin thinks about each other, the war, and it's giving us a little insight into like the beginning of the Clone Wars. So I'm absolutely loving this book so far, and I hope you guys are too. All right, so far we're on chapter 6. This will be about our girl Beanie, Asajj Ventress. Oh, is the music okay? I always gotta make sure, because I can never tell before I start. Yep, it's a good book. I know, right? It's fantastic. It's a really good book. And yes, alright, perfect. Perfecto. Alright, so sit back, chill. Have me in the background as you do whatever you're doing on this late Tuesday, which is about to be early morning Wednesday. And let's just vibe as we read this book. Chapter 26, Asajj Ventress. Katar proved himself eager to listen to anything Ventress had to say, which he understood. All of his pain and rage bubbled under the surface, searching for some type of release. It was fortunate for him that she had come along. Fortunate that she had encountered Katar and his more prickly partner when she did. Fortunate that Katar found her shortly after their shift. She listened, of course, walking with him, sitting with him, letting the young man vent his fury about Katasura, about the lives lost, about his suspicions about the Republic. He didn't prove to be an expert at science, though, letting his emotions make illogical conclusions about explosives and further conspiracies. Such diatribes were as irritating as they were amusing. But she stayed quiet, using the mere act of silence acceptance to earn his trust. But now she would take action, turn the tables. You probably wouldn't even realize it. They stepped through the mist of Cairo Moidia, a deliberate journey from where she landed her ship to the bunker, something she'd set up even before she announced her presence to the local government. It wasn't the most direct or efficient way, but Katar simply followed her. Oh shit. Oh, my boy Matus is here. You know what's a good book? Bun Bun. No, Bun Bun's not a good book. Damn, are you reading romance novels now? Nah, Negro. We're reading Star Wars, bro. LOL, it's been a while, but get out. No Bun Buns here in this stream. How dare you? Welcome, homie. This is part 4. Now we're reading the Star Wars book Brotherhood in preparation for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. So this shit is good. It is a little bit, when it's to come to Anakin and Padme, it is a little bit of a romance book. I'm not gonna lie. That's right. Bun Bun is dead. No more Bun Buns. Screw Bun Buns. It's dead. Star Wars, that can be considered. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Some parts of the book are a little romantic. Literally, we have like a whole chapter of like Anakin and Padme on a date. So you're not wrong. But yeah, we're on part 4. We're on chapter 26. There is, I think, 52 chapters. So we're trying to finish this shit by Thursday. And by the pace we're going to, I think we're going to finish it by Thursday. In preparation for the Kenobi show. Padme is a baddie, I ain't gonna lie. No wonder Anakin killed younglings for her. I mean, shit, I probably would do the same thing. Alright, what was I? It wasn't the most direct or efficient way, but Qatar simply... Yeah, so you can just have me in the background. It's literally just me reading with the chill beats in the background. So I will, like, look at the chat every now and again, but, you know, you can just have me in the background as you're chilling. Whatever you're doing. I'm surprised you're awake by now. Don't you have to work in the morning? Waiting for that response. But who said you die? I'll continue reading. I'll look at the chat though every now and then, so you know you can just chill back and. Yeah. Okay. It wasn't the most direct or efficient way, but I go to bed at midnight. Oh, okay, dang. So you're about to sleep. So yeah, let my nice radio voice put you to sleep, Matus. I'm on mobile, so there's a delay. Yeah, I know. For some reason, Twitch on mobile, it's always a delay. Got a good 15 minutes. Yeah, he got a good 15 minutes. So let's see if I can read him a bedtime story. It wasn't the most direct or efficient way, but Katara simply followed her, mostly in silence, as he took in the devastation of Katasura's fallen neighborhood. Ventress made sure to point out when they'd passed something that might specifically needle Katara's rage, asking questions about a crushed museum or the markers left where bodies had been discovered. The whole journey taking several times longer than it should have. That was all by design. I understand your concerns and your anger, she said. I wanted to. They stopped, the most unexpected sight in front of her. What's this place? He asked. Ventress squinted, a quick assessment of what had happened. And then she saw it, one little giveaway that prompted the corner of her lip to curl up. Kenobi had visited, hadn't he? The Confederacy set me up with the equipment, she said. I've stored it down here. They approached the building, each step revealing further details under the full moonlight. Katara knelt down and then reached to the ground. He held up small tufts of fur, then pointed at the splashes of blood on the bunker before drawing his pistol. From behind the structure, a corgi beast waddled out, still chewing on a piece of meat, its large ears forward. The wildlife, Katara said. It must have hunted its prey here. He gestured to the massive dent in the front door as they got closer. Looks like it's collided with the door when they fought. The creature locked eyes with Ventress, though she held a hand out, each step taken with cautious approach while it sniffed the air. It swallowed its meat, then moved tentatively closer to her. Ventress reached out through the force, tapping into a rarely used sense in her, a simple communication to tell creatures that she was safe. Large brown eyes the size of fists looked her way, then softened. Ventress removed her hood, then scratched the beast on the side of its nose, fingers entangled in its whiskers. I understand the drive to survive, she said, before looking around to scan the area. Other than the hint of further wildlife, she didn't detect any presences. It is not its fault here. She reached into a belt pouch. Enjoy some rations. Katara caught up to them. Though he kept several meters distance, their environment had been disturbed by the crash. I imagine it was quite disruptive. Ventress paused, then stepped over the broken door. Curious, she said, her fingers tracing the area where a distinct circular puncture showed the scars of burning and melting. Clever, Kenobi. What's that? Katara asked. Oh, he said, nothing. I am simply marveling at the strength of these beasts. Ventress petted the creature once more, and it turned, bounding off into the night, only a few stray tufts of fur trailing behind. It appears this bunker is no longer safe from the local wildlife. Come, I could use your help. They climbed through the opening, which offered just enough space for a single person. Katara snapped on the light from his shoulder, and Ventress assessed the situation. Most of it looked intact, though there wasn't much there to begin with. The comm system still appeared capable of transmitting, and the case in the corner appeared, sealed. A firm tug on the lid showed the same. What was missing, though? What was the data pad? She looked around the comm station, checked the corners, but the light equipment in the bunker ended the search quickly. She planned on giving information to Katara, a means of pushing him over the edge he precariously clung to. Her plans would have to change, but her goal, that remained. In fact, this might prove to be even more useful in pushing Katara. I want you to consider this. What if there was a way to ensure that Kea Moria never supported the Republic again? Ventress asked, walking over to the secured case in the corner. What would that be worth? Almost anything, Katara said in a quick response. Almost anything? Ventress tilted her chin and gave a shrug. Or anything. It depends on the risk. Katara crossed his arms, the motion partially blocking his shoulder lamp. My people have suffered greatly. There it was, the heralded Nemoidian risk assessment. Such an inherent trait seemed beneficial in most situations. However, when passions ran high, all it took was a few choice words to change things by 1%, possibly 2%. Sometimes that was all that was necessary. Let us consider that, of all the Nemoidians in the galaxy, is this their greatest injustice? Or is it the long history of quiet prejudice they have faced? Ventress looked him in the eye, then gave the thought several seconds to sink in. Individuals died with Katasura. Your people have faced a different battle long before, all across the galaxy. People like, she stepped forward, now only an arm's length between them, your parents. Qatar blinked several times before his eyes fell to the floor. You could get justice for Katasura, or you might think bigger than that. Think about the entire planet, the Trade Federation. Ventress turned her back to Qatar, one arm up. Every Nemoidian in the galaxy. She waited, his silence telling her that her words dug in deep. Now was the perfect time. I have something to show you, she said, stepping over to the locked case on the door. A biometric scanner glowed to life, a single green line running over the palm before the locking mechanism whirred and clicked. She lifted the lid, and the illumination from Qatar's shoulder lamp cast shadows as she came closer to it. He looked inside a sharp gasp indicating he realized what it contained. Oh, don't worry, these explosives have nothing to do with the tragedy of the Katasura bombing. I assure you of that. This was the truth, though Ventress wondered how deep her claws were in him at this point. He may have believed anything she said at this point, truth or lie. She leaned over behind him, a direct strength to her words. What this does offer is the opportunity to make sure Katasura is never forgotten. He said, a tremble rippling through his body, something Ventress detected despite his guard armor. I don't understand. A betrayal of this magnitude needs someone to stand up for what is right. She let him have a moment, the power of mere words exploding into possibilities on display in Qatar's expression. Consider this a tool to do just that. Do what? Make a statement of some sort. Ventress already had a suggestion in mind, but she drew her words out with intention, as if this were a sudden burst of inspiration. Perhaps the Republic Consulate office in the east wing of the Capitol complex. It is a single-person room that is rarely occupied. Did you consider why it was always empty? Rusbin Frisk, the regional diplomat, she covers multiple systems. She's elsewhere most of the time. Doesn't that frustrate you? The Republic cares so little that the assigned diplomat simply visits for a day as a formality, rather than a true sense of duty. She nodded, a gesture to suggest confidence in the idea. But really, the move had a much more calculated purpose. It gave Qatar permission to consider it. A single explosion, she continued, at that office. A statement without risk. A bomb, Qatar slowed as if dozens of thoughts were encapsulated in that single word. I don't know. I need to think about it. Of course, his hesitation marked her victory, because it showed consideration rather than outright rejection. All she needed to do was give him the proper space and motivation to turn that into something more. You must calculate what you're willing to sacrifice. In the meantime, we would finish here and move this somewhere secure from the local wildlife. She glanced over her shoulder, then back at Qatar. We wouldn't want them to get hurt. Besides, there's something on the surface I need to find. What's that? He asked, still staring at the explosive material in the case. You said you'd find that Jedi to be honest, honorable, even though you disagree with him. He seems that way, yes. Rugg trusts him, and I trust her. In the dark, Ventress smiled, a grin so large that she would only allow it given that she stood behind Qatar. Beneath her cloak, her hands instinctively reached for the lightsaber hilts that hung by her hips. Weapons that would soon come into play, but not here. For now, they'd stay hidden, obscured by the draped fabric. Let's find out what he really brought with him to Cato Nemoidia, shall we? Dang, freaking, I'm gonna fall asleep with my thumb in my mouth the way that this is being read. Papa Pop reading a bedtime story for the kids. That's right. I do it for the children. I keep hearing Qatar and thinking it's Avatar. Yeah, that's one of the Nemoidian's name. I think his name is pronounced Qatar. Honestly, that's all I've been thinking of too. The last Airbenders in Star Wars. He'd be fantastic in Star Wars. Oh my god, Aang would be kind of like God in there. I'm not gonna lie. Could Aang be Palpatine? Question mark. Chapter 27. Anakin Skywalker. Oh, by the way, most of these chapters are named either Anakin or Obi-Wan, or basically any of the actual characters that's like mainly focused in that chapter. So that's what you're gonna hear Anakin and Obi-Wan a lot for these chapters. Everything changed when the Fire Nation came. Bro, you drinking beer? Nah, I'm drinking malt. Nah, I'm drinking malt. Shit. Me getting drunk while reading? Nah, I can't do that. At least not yet. If it's something that Nico's girl Izzy makes for me, I'll drink that shit. That shit good. Ooh, excuse me. Is malt your sponsored drink? Bro, malt should sponsor me. Oh my god. You drink it every stream. It's the only drink I have that's cold that I don't have to pour in a bottle, so that's why I'm always drinking it. I just want some Jar Jar ASMR. No. No, are you trying to drive us crazy? No Jar Jar ASMR. And no Beans is probably gonna want that. No. No Jar Jar. Not today. Misa is not here today. Although he was mentioned. Anakin mentioned him as like a good friend. Chapter 27. Anakin Skywalker. Anakin clicked the button again, prompting a single beep, and again, nothing. Come on, Obi-Wan, he muttered to himself. He paced around the small room, a makeshift office tucked to the side of a random hallway in the cruiser's lower level. From the window, he saw the loading bay, troops walking back and forth, groups of clone troopers in green helmets passing by further troopers in armor with gray patches and lines. At the end of the bay, a shuttle landed, a different group with yellow-trimmed armor unloading, empty supply crates in their arms. And behind them, Mill sat outside the door, waiting patiently. She didn't ask why he huddled in there, but she agreed to wait. Anakin wasn't even sure why he kept her around when she could have easily been dispatched to the other younglings. But from the little time they'd spent together, he got the sense that she had learned more around him than with the rambunctious initiates more interested in forced trickery than what was happening down on Langston. At the very least, she had way more patience than those younglings. Where are you, Obi-Wan? Anakin said to himself, clicking the button on his comlink again. The beep came and went again. A call with no answer. Anakin held up the device, talking to it as if it were a standard communicator. Come in, Obi-Wan. This is your really annoyed former Padawan. But of course, those words wouldn't transmit across the galaxy. Not until Obi-Wan picked up on his end. Anakin supposed that he might have been tied up in something important, or he may have simply forgotten the communicator in its secured case. Whatever the reason, a promise still existed in the form of some really important data, some really damning data, and simply standing around waiting for the fallout drove Anakin mad. Anakin checked the comment's transmission logs again and made sure that Dex's report was received by Obi-Wan's device, which it was, which meant that Obi-Wan now had confirmation that all of the data he discovered on Cato Moya's surface was authentic. Where it all originated remained undetermined, but all the technical links tying details directly to the Republic. Damn, that kind of sucks. They were real, and Anakin didn't know what to do about that except pace around the room, repeatedly hitting the button on the comlink. He glanced over at the door, which remained shut, Mill outside. They were supposed to be meeting with the rest of the younglings for a lesson on local maps and how the climate of a planet influenced its topography, and thus the way the society built its community. A valuable lesson to be sure, but both from a cultural and tactical perspective. But really, Anakin needed to hear from Obi-Wan. For now, the best he could do was leave him a message. He clicked the button twice, and the chirp with a higher tone beeped to indicate it was recording. Obi-Wan, where are you? I just sent you the findings. It looks bad for the Republic. The information on the datapad is authentic. It's real. There has to be a reason. I don't know how or why, but there has to be. We need to get from the bottom of this. He clicked the button again to transmit, then leaned back against the room's console, arms crossed. How could someone frame the Republic so easily? As if the Force had been listening in on the moment. Anakin's comlink finally beeped. He looked at the door one more time, then figured Mill could wait another few minutes. Well, you sure took your sweet time. I thought we had a galaxy to save. The low hiss of the communicator's open channel continued, though no voice came over it. Obi-Wan, can you hear me? You see, a voice spoke, someone who was definitely not Obi-Wan Kenobi. The female voice was raspy and oily, two short words loaded with menace. He brought a communicator with him. Who is this? Anakin yelled. What have you done with Obi-Wan? The comlink beeped a low tone, dropping the connection dead. Anakin stared at it, gripping the device in the palm of his mechanical hand, as if he could... Oh, my TV's giving me commercials again. No. Hey, Michi's here. Hey, yo, Michi, what's up? It's been a while. That's fine, Matus, Just let me put you to sleep, man. What's up, Michi? How you doing? How are you doing? What you been up to today? Today's Tuesday, right? So you have to go to school. I'm sore from working out and ran away from angry ducks. Oh, you worked out today? This stream is sponsored by Liberty Mutual. No. Of course you made ducks angry. That sounds about right. I worked out yesterday, still store. You went to the gym or you just worked out at your house? Nah, I don't believe you. You probably were bothering those ducks. You're a menace. You're definitely bothering those ducks. LOL. Went to the gym at my school. Oh. LOL. I knew goose were evil, but I didn't know ducks would be so aggressive. They're only aggressive if they have their babies with them. So that's probably why. So where was I? What have you done with Obi-Wan? The comlink beeped a low tone, dropping the connection dead. Anakin stared at it, gripping the device in the palm of his mechanical hand, as if he could penetrate through the wiring and composite to reveal the true nature of who it was on the other side. He almost hit the button again to send a hailing signal, but thought better of it. In fact, right now this comlink was the wrong kind of evidence. With that thought, he tossed the device into the air, drew his lightsaber, and in one move slashed it in two. It fell to the floor, each half landing with a clink, steam coming from the burning orange-yellow seams. Master Skywalker. Anakin looked up to find the door ajar and Mill poking her head through. I felt her lips pursed and nose wrinkled as she searched for the right word. Concern. It's okay, Mill, he said, fists formed at his side and his jaw clenched, thoughts turning to fears, turning to so much more. Who could he go to? They weren't supposed to be in contact. He couldn't reach out to the Jedi Council. Obi-Wan told him to stay away. And now someone had all the information that might cast blame on the Republic. That someone had to be the agent Dooku had sent to Cain Moidia. Master, are you alright? Anakin looked at Mill, the tan skin and horns of a Zabarak, but the eyes of a universal youth. That moment down on Langston seemed so profound, the intersection of spiritual awakening and a commitment to righteous choices. And yet, after all that, she was still just a youngling, curious, uncertain, and maturing. She could grow into herself and her abilities to make her own choices, but for now, she relied on her elders as he used to. No, he said quietly, I am not alright, and I lied. Things aren't okay. Can we? She started before catching herself, then she looked to either side, each direction down the long hallways of the cruiser before stepping in the room and letting the door seal behind her. Smart, Anakin thought. Can we help Master Kenobi? You heard, Anakin said. Well, you kind of yelled it. Back on Tatooine, he had a choice to make. With Obi-Wan in peril, wounds still fresh in his heart from burying his mother, different paths were laid out before him. Go and help Obi-Wan or stay on his home planet as Master Windu dictated. But in the end, he didn't make a choice. He was a Padawan, still operating under so many layers of guidance, and Padme had been the one to decide for both of him. However, now he was a Jedi Knight, with the authority to make decisions, even ones people didn't like, except it turned out that even Obi-Wan bent the rules from time to time. He might as well start now. Let me think. Anakin began pacing around the room, ideas snapping into focus. They couldn't include the clones in this. That visual might trigger a far greater conflict. That was Obi-Wan's entire reason for going alone. Same thing with the Jedi. Any officials with any type of ties to the Republic could cause problems. No, this had to be discreet and swift. When you were helping that family down on Langston, did you happen to see any vessels with hyperdrive capabilities? Maybe in the neighborhood around here? Bill's expression turned puzzled with a scrunched face. There are a number of them in the landing area. They're not really being used right now. They're too busy trying to rebuild from the battle. The moment of decision in a previous life, it meant waiting for permission, for guidance, Obi-Wan telling him what to do and when to do it, or Padme using her status to make a decision for them. But here, now, the choice was his. He could stay on the cruiser, finish the distribution assignment on Langston, then head back to the Jedi Temple in a few days, Or he could go down to the surface now, let Mill guide him to an available ship, and fly to Caden Moidia. What was proper versus what was right? It was right, after all. Even Chancellor Palpatine believed he should be out there alongside Obi-Wan. In fact, only the rules of the Jedi stood in the way. This was Anakin Skywalker as a Jedi Knight, finally with the freedom to choose his path, and he was going to take it, to protect Obi-Wan Kenobi and maybe even the galaxy. Can you show me where these ships are? Sure, Mill said, but what for? Anakin looked down at the long corridor, a handful of clones passing by with nothing more than a salute. It's like I asked you the other day. You said you wanted to help people, right? And that's the end of chapter 27. What the hell? Maybe if they got confused, it'll distract them. I want to pet a duck. Oh my god, shut up. There's no bun. No buns. I follow so many channels with people owning pet ducks. Ducks are so cute. And no rage. This book sounds like propaganda. I mean, in a way, you're not wrong. It kind of is propaganda. I mean, it's wartime, so, you know, wartime is perfect for propaganda. This is how the ducks looked at me. Alright, I'm gonna head to sleep. Sleep. No buns. Alright, Matus. Night, mate. Hope you have a good sleep. What did Michelle send? Maybe you stop bothering the ducks, they wouldn't try to murder you. You ever think of that? You can call me Carl. Coral. Good night, mate. Have good dreams. Hopefully not a propaganda in war. Alright, so we almost chapter 8, Obi-Wan Kenobi. The day had not turned up any further leads, despite a full morning and afternoon on the surface. The local officials let him investigate alone. Oh boy, excuse me. I think that was Joe. Investigate alone. The adventurers was nowhere to be found, but even that unexpected freedom of movement failed to prove any more fruitful, producing only further gathering of scientific data that was ambiguous at best. Obi-Wan had returned to Zarya, pressure accumulating from 2 ticking chronos, Rug's lead, whatever that was, and the potentially disastrous information sitting on the mysterious datapad. He had only been gone from his moon for 10, possibly 15 minutes, a simple walk to clear his mind, the rhythm of movement enough to ground him while sharpening his mental acuity. Yet, when he turned the corner of the hallway in the palatial government offices, a problem immediately jumped out. He walked at a normal pace, conscious of any possible surveillance as he returned to his quarters. It became clear as he approached. The door was ajar. He stopped in front of it, examining everything from the silent mechanisms to the embedded electromechanical lock. When he pushed at the door itself, though, it barely moved, the usual motion sensors failing to trigger. The lock sat devoid of any status lights, as if something drained the power, or cut it, from the entire system. He pushed his palm, shoving hard to nudge the panel open enough to let him slide through, but once he got inside, he saw a bigger problem than a busted door. On the floor was Anakin's supposedly impenetrable case, separated from the scanner that acted as his cover story. Obi-Wan knelt down, remembering Anakin's claim that the alien might even be tough enough to withstand the lightsaber. And here the hypothesis had been put to the test, because the case itself was punctured, a burn mark that Obi-Wan was quite familiar with, strategically placed to be able to split the case in two without harming the contents, a precision that would require training in the Jedi arts, a Jedi-controlled panic. Recognizing the onset of such an urge and then tampering with it with both physical and emotional control. But considering the context of the case, a single comment and a small data pod that might change the fate of the galaxy brought Obi-Wan the closest to panic he probably would ever get. He scanned the room, a desperate search for both devices, but with the simplicity of the space, it was clear that both had been taken. He picked up the pieces of the case, taking a closer look to confirm his suspicion about the lightsaber burns. The rest of his things lay right where he'd left them, from his other equipment to his storage crate. Only this, with the evidence in plain sight. Obi-Wan stood in the middle of the room, his mind plotting out the different steps forward. So many variables came into play. Who stole the equipment? Who had they shown it to? Was it contained to Kingdom Moidia, or had it gotten bigger, dragging both the CIS and the Republic into this? Who had access to and training in lightsabers? Footsteps came from down the hall, gradually approaching until they stopped outside his door with a firm step. Master Kenobi, a guard said, your presence is requested. Had the culprit resorted to stealth, the comlink and the datapad would have been recovered without giving away what was afoot. And yet here, everything was placed with as such precision as the lightsaber cut itself. All of it came with clear intention, from the way the case opened to the fact that it sat in plain sight. This wasn't about evidence, this was a message. Master Kenobi, the guard repeated. He turned around only to find the two other guards accompanied the speaker, all with weapons drawn. We will need your weapon as well. Oh, damn, Obi-Wan. Shit. I don't want to talk about the trauma those ducks gave me yesterday. I can never trust ducks again. No, ducks are adorable. We just met an angry mama and her troubled children. Geese are the only bad ones. They are adorable until they change for you for no reason. Geese are definitely evil. Even the name sounds evil. Geese were made in hell. True, I saw them being made. I have scars on my arms from when the ducks chased me. You see, maybe the ducks or the geese gave you that thing and not me. And don't hate on geese. That's being racist against geese. Geese are alright. Minister of Love Iam looked at the gathering, a small group to fit in the office about half the size of Palpatine's, but with more ornate decor. The wall of shiny and glowing sculptures standing on the polished stone floor, a far cry from the muted tones and the occasional artwork of the Chancellor's office. Obi-Wan walked in, escorted and with his lightsaber now in the possession of one of the guards. Across the way, further officials sat, an elevated podium that established hierarchy despite the fact that this wasn't a trial. No obvious recording devices stood in place, though those types of things could be hidden easily within walls or statues, assuming never proved to be a good strategy. So Obi-Wan insisted merely wondered if Senator Dodd and the rest of the proper Trade Federation leadership listened, or possibly Count Dooku. Around the room stood another set of guards, and behind Obi-Wan sat several officials that he hadn't met before. Rugg was nowhere to be found, and perhaps more important, neither was Ventress. Master Kenobi, thank you for coming on such short notice. Iam's tone remained cordial, and Obi-Wan weighed the different ways to respond. Where the officials had seen the incriminating evidence was unclear. At the same time, feigning ignorance might appear at best patronizing, at worst deceptive. And despite some of the twists and turns caused by Anakin's communicator and mystery datapad, all of Obi-Wan's decisions sparked from a purity of design, a commitment to finding a way to de-escalate the war, to save lives, to abide by the Jedi creed of peace and justice. Yet despite his best intentions, he may have accelerated the greatest crisis the Republic had ever seen. Obi-Wan elected to go with a straightforward response. Thank you, Minister Yam. When I arrived in Kingdom Moidia, I promised I would do everything in my power to identify the perpetrator of the crime. I do have several leads at the moment, along with a wealth of forensic data. I hope to find findings for you sooner rather than later. Voices murmured around the room, and Obi-Wan waited for them to settle down. We appreciate all of the efforts you have made, Master Kenobi. Iam nodded, and though the guards still stood at attention, no air of aggressiveness came from them. Obi-Wan wondered if perhaps the motivation for this gathering stemmed from the administration performing a simple status check rather than any disturbing findings. I promise you a thorough and detailed report in coming days, free from any political filter or other undue influence. More whispers floated through the room, gathering momentum until the collective voices reached a crescendo that caused Iam to call for order. Through it all, Obi-Wan maintained a straight, stoic posture, though he called out to the Force, gauging the emotions swirling throughout the space. We understood that you are still gathering data, Iam said. However, further evidence have recently come to our attention. Suddenly, the mood in the room shifted, a palpable change that led Obi-Wan to accept that the worst may have indeed happened, and he would have to react accordingly to preserve any chance of peace. He simply nodded at the minister's statement, his eyes scanning the room, with several quick clicks echoed through the space. The door behind the podium slid open, revealing two figures, Qatar and Ventress. but not Rug, because this evidence, Kassar said, a ferocity to his words, clearly shows that the Jedi emissary has not been completely honest with us. He walked in, a small folded cloth in his hands. Everyone in the room turned, angling this way or that to get a look at the cloth. But Obi-Wan already knew. He knew from the unblinking glare on Katar's face, from the smug derision on Ventress's lips. He knew because the message had stared right at him from the floor of his quarters. A message in the form of broken pieces, only possible via precise cuts from a lightsaber. Whose lightsaber, he still didn't know, but as Obi-Wan met Ventress's look under her hood, his suspicion grew. While this Jedi Knight, Katar started, a derisive mockery in the word, was among us, I knew something was not correct. After all, doesn't the Republic have a long history of treating Nemoidians as second-class citizens, as walking transactions and nothing else? So why would this be any different? He unfolded the cloth in his palm, plucking out the missing comic resting on the top of the datapad. Obi-Wan had recovered on the surface. Katar held them up high, one device in each hand. Deception is the way of the Republic, he said. His voice was so piercing it sparked an uproar. Iam stood, arms waving, to calm the commotion that had overtaken the space. But just as the noise began to settle, Ventress spoke up. We found the Jedi's secret bunker on the surface, he said, activating the hollow projection of the structure he'd visited. Images cycled through until it stopped on a close-up of the door. Specifically, the lightsaber burns on the hinges. In my time working with Count Dooku, I have come to recognize the mark of a Jedi's weapon. He did, after all, leave the Order because of the concerns of corruption. And this, she gestured at the image, is clear evidence of Obi-Wan Kenobi trying to seal off the bunker, which of course wasn't the purpose of the burn, but Obi-Wan knew such a clarification meant little right now. The visual was enough to identify his presence regardless of the truth. And why would he hide such things? Why would he? The images switched and showed the bunker as a burnt-out ashen hell. Burned such a structure, clearly to destroy the evidence. With that, Katar held up the datapad and comic again, except this time each activated. First, the datapad projected a hologram of information, side-by-side comparisons between bomb details forensically pieced together and schematics of Republic bombs used by the clones. Then the comic played audio for everyone to hear. Obi-Wan, where are you? Anakin's voice came out. I've just sent you the findings. It looks bad for the Republic. The information on the datapad is authentic. It's real. I can explain, Obi-Wan said. I understand what this looks like, but you must listen to me. I want the same thing you do. I want peace and I want truth. Please give me more time. But his words had no effect on the audience. The technicalities that the bunker already existed, that datapad was already there, the communications went to Anakin on Langston and not the Jedi Council on Coruscant. None of that mattered. The optics were all against him. Katar and Ventress simply needed an opening. So this Jedi, Ventress said, comes to your world, violates your rules, hides the evidence you so desperately seek, and then transmits it to the Republic. He has not just broken trust, he has smashed it to pieces, then swept it away. Katar walked in front of the officials, still holding up the two devices. We're fortunate that the Confederacy sent Asajj Ventress to oversee the Jedi emissary. Without her, who knows what he might have gotten away with. The room gave way to shouting, words and fingers pointing at Obi-Wan with a distinct fury, where anything presented by Katar and Ventress amplified the raw pain of Karasura. Iam shouted everyone down, then stood up. The emissary of the Republic has been charged with hiding evidence and violating the conditions of his stay during a catastrophic time. As such, the minister said, he'll be tried for his crimes in the great theater of judgment, open to the air in the midst of all Cato Nemoidia, for all the galaxy to see. Guards! 6 guards marched in from the back entrance, Rug among them. Obi-Wan looked at her, and while the most of the guards were stoic determination, Rug's mouth and eyes showed creases of concern. Should he be found guilty, the emissary's punishment will be swift. Until that time, he will be detained. Iam took in a breath and guided the room. Katar continued to glow, a spark ready to ignite at a moment's notice. Ventress watched with cool detachment, arms crossed in the frozen pose. As for Rug, the worry on her face grew with each passing second. Was it for Obi-Wan? Was it for her people? Was it for the galaxy whose gears were about to turn yet again? Obi-Wan Kenobi, Jedi Knight, emissary of the Republic, let it be declared here. You are the enemy of the state. Iam stood and flickered his wrist forward. Guards, take him away. Dang, Obi-Wan's always in this shit. Maybe they used duck magic. Never mind. Life is good. Just heard we had mid ice cream in the fridge. Yo, I had ice cream yesterday. Ice cream buddies. Ice cream makes everything better. I don't know what anyone else says. Nah, it's true. It cools you down. That's true. Ice cream does do that. Ice cream does do that to you. I love how you guys are talking about ice cream. That's funny. I, on the other hand, have not had ice cream in quite a bit. Chapter 29, Anakin the Skywalker. The clones complied with every request. They didn't bother to ask why Anakin wanted additional medical supplies or access to a shuttle. Instead, he got a simple "yes, sir," followed by a quick departure to receive the crates, stopping only to answer Mill's question about whether the additional supplies would be missed. We always load in excess of 3 to 5% of materials in case anything is lost or damaged on the way, the trooper explained, which worked for both of their purposes, and he even pointed to one of their 4 Eta-class shuttles sitting unused in the docking bay. Whichever you prefer, General. No explanations, no justifications, a simple chain of command, one that left him with countless troops ready to do whatever he deemed necessary. The sheer number of possibilities exploded through Anakin's mind, the temptation of simply getting whatever he wanted done, but that quickly became tempered with a discipline, one that reminded him where his responsibilities lay. Padme, the Chancellor, Obi-Wan, the Jedi, the Republic. Though after Padme, things shifted around based on situations, pushing him one way or the other. In many cases, they all aligned. Padme, after all, was a key member of the Senate, which worked with the Jedi and for the Republic. Prioritizing one often trickled down to all of them. Even now, with this makeshift plan, it all chained together. If he went to be Obi-Wan's backup, it might assist in Obi-Wan's goal of de-escalating the war. If the war was de-escalated, then the Republic would be safer. If the Republic was safer, then the Jedi would be needed less, and the Senate would have fewer emergency sessions. And if those things happened, then Anakin and Padme would have fewer things to try to pull them apart. Really, that was all that mattered. Galactic peace, Obi-Wan's safety, Palpatine's stability, all those things were important. But when layer by layer was stripped away, the only thing that truly mattered to Anakin's Sun Dragon heart was Padme. He would do anything to protect her, even if that meant shifting the entire axis of the galaxy. Foreshadowing for sure. Or in this case, going to help Obi-Wan and Kate Moidia, because someone had gotten their hands on the most important data in the galaxy. The clone returned to the blinking lights of the launch bay, reflecting off the gray stripes painted across his helmet. He gestured to the 3 supply crates on the now deactivated repulsor lift dolly, then walked away. When Anakin dismissed him, R2-D2 rolled up slowly up to the inventory, then beeped a comment that roughly came across as, "Do I have to carry all that?" Mill looked at the droid quizzically, and Anakin offered a quick translation before replying, "Some of it, but I'll need you for something more important." R2-D2 in fact did not carry any of the storage crates, but the astromech droid did pull the repulsor lift platform beneath the 3 boxes of medical supplies for R2. They walked through the broken neighborhood of Langston's mining district, a cluster of doomed buildings designed to work with the heavy winds at the base of the nearest mountains, signs of a civilization that had thrived just a few weeks before the Separatists decided to make it a battleground. Wisps of blue sand, causing a thin veil of color to come and go, enough for Anakin to bury his gloved mechanical hand under his cloak. His eyes, his ears, he was used to sand in that, but the joints and gears that were now part of his body, those needed protecting. Decades of architecture and infrastructure had been transformed into mounds of rubble and half-standing buildings. Walls had complete chunks missing due to rockets or blaster fire. And while Mill's demeanor reset itself during their short time back on the ship, she took tentative steps, a strained look on her face in the form of thin lips and concerned eyes. Mill led the way quietly, allowing Anakin to take in the scene, the multi-species population showing a combination of resolve, fatigue, and despair. Anakin saw it, from the younglings playing blitzball in the nearby lake to the elder Aquilish sitting in the remaining doorway arch of an otherwise vaporizing building, and if he saw it, then Mill must have sensed it as well. "Look at this," she broke free from their pace. then ran over to a pile of debris, a mix of dented stone and twisted beams, all marred by blackened scars of blasted fire. Do you see it? Anakin caught up to her, still uncertain about what caught her attention. Even here, with all this, Mill spread her arms wide. Life can grow. She pulled several pieces of jagged debris out of a rubble mound, much of it already covered in a layer of Langston's stand. Their chunks rolled to the ground and settled, and Mill blew the remaining sand away to clear off the space. There, she said, a single wildflower, now visible. It reacted with a sensitivity greater than most flowers Anakin had seen, its petals tilting upward as they encountered the sunbeams. A little bit of help. She turned, catching Anakin's sudden grin. What? Clones don't look for flowers, huh? They probably don't, but it's not that. Anakin gestured at Mill. They keep leading the way, thinking of Padme putting a flower in her hair just nights ago, and wondering if she kept it or if she had already withered away. I know someone who would appreciate this, that's all. He pointed over the horizon, a path opening into a wide thoroughfare for the community. Should we start asking around? Anakin asked, a practical question, but also something to distract Mill from her obvious queasiness. The town spaceport is over there. There were a few local crafts seen around. He dragged his finger across a nearby wall, a layer of sand coming off into his black glove, probably covered in dust. No, Mill said, we should keep going. R2-D2 complained, but Anakin motioned for him to settle down. Don't tell me you're getting tired. He laughed at the droid's sassy reply. What do you mean a long walk? We don't even know. Anakin stopped and watched Mill, and though the youngling carried the burden of being affected by everything she felt around them, she walked with purpose, turning immediately down a smaller alley. Hey, Mill, we're in business district, Anakin said, catching up to her. Plenty of shopkeepers here who probably own a ship for one reason or another. Why don't we just announce ourselves? Because they need these supplies. Mill, we can't help everyone we encounter. That's just not practical, and I really need to get going. The young Zabrak turned, a surprised fierceness in her eyes. She suddenly looked taller, and her jawline clenched with a burst of confidence. In that moment, Anakin saw so much of a reflection in her, not just of his instinctive, stubborn pull to his own moral compass, but also of Padme's ability to both emphasize and be pragmatic about it. One look told him who they were. Rokora and her siblings lost their elders in the attack. They need something to get by without the family business. I don't know if they'll use these supplies. Maybe they'll bother them. Mill turned and resumed walking. Each tried picking up the pace, but this'll help. Shouldn't we give them that after what had happened to them? Anakin turned skyward with a sigh, exasperation, but also a hint of amusement slipping in. R2-D2 chirped back at, what are we waiting for? Series of beeps, and Anakin shot the droid a look. Yes, R2, he said, patting the rolling droid on the head. I know she's right. R2 squawked again, almost as the droid laughed at him. Then he whistled a question in electronic form. Yeah, I agree. Padme would like her too. Good old R2. The transactions took longer than Anakin would have liked given the circumstances, but he quickly saw that Mill made the correct call. The supplies now with the group of Garo's siblings. Anakin powered up their family ship, an ancient hyperdrive-capable dynamic class freighter called the Norica, formerly used for hauling select bins of Langston's rarest ores, smallest purses for specialized manufacturing. But now the ship sat idle, 2 generations of the family killed in crossfire and collateral damage, leaving it to become a rental by barter craft for a Jedi Knight on an unauthorized mission. Mill waved goodbye to a limping Rokora, then met with Anakin as he ran a diagnostic check. They know I'll return as soon as I can. They do. They also said to take your time. No one's flying anywhere right now. Hopefully, Anakin said, looking at the readouts on the panels for the power balance among speed, shield, and auxiliary operations. This will be over in just a day or two. I'd much prefer that R2-D2 chimed in with a sarcastic comment about needing some downtime, and Anakin refused to identify that with a response. As for you, he said, call Theo from the shuttle and tell him that I've gone to investigate something. They'll send a pilot to bring you and the shuttle back to the cruiser. You don't know your way back, right? That's not necessary, Master. Why's that? Anakin asked, running initial diagnostics on the hyperdrive's energy stabilizer. Dearborn will make sure you get back to the temple soon, because I'm coming with you. He stopped, toggling the switches and swiveled his chair around. Excuse me? This is why he never ever considered dealing with a Padawan. He knew how stubborn they were. That was him mere months ago. Boy, he can't. Ahsoka's gonna be a problem for you. Master, I would rather. This is good. This is actually good preparation for Ahsoka. Master, I'd rather do something that might bring an end to war instead of digging for kyber crystals. The gathering is much more than just getting a kyber crystal. It's a I know. I heard the Padawan say you found yourself on Ilum. I don't care. The other younglings want weapons, adventure, and fighting. Big jumps. You're going somewhere that might put an end to the war. Kayla Moria has no place for a youngling, not right now. And how do you know that? She asked, hands now squarely on hips. Because, Anakin said, ducking underneath the control panel. He pretended to check wiring, but really it was a way to buy time to come up with an answer. It's a tense political situation. Why do we do this? Are we just swinging a lightsaber and lifting boxes, or are we building peace? She got down on his level, a determined scowl now face to face with him under the council. Peace across the galaxy. Peace in yourself. You asked me if I wanted to help people. Well, that's what I'm going to do, with you. Her words echoed the memories so many years ago when Qui-Gon Jinn told him to stay in the cockpit of a starfighter as the Naboo attempted to take back their planet from the Trade Federation. Of course he kept his word about staying in the cockpit. Qui-Gon told me to stay in this cockpit, and that's what I'm going to do, he told R2-D2, at the same time with the same conviction Mill used now. And he kept his word all while doing what he thought was right. What his heart told him to do in order to help the people he quickly grew to care about. He stayed in the cockpit. It was surroundings that changed as he flew into space. Yep. I'm not changing your mind, am I? He asked. Mill sat down in the Norika's passenger seat, then adjusted the ponytail behind her horns. Not a chance. Yo, I love this girl. Peace is a lie. There is only passion. I know, right? Yeah, this is a good precursor to Ahsoka, because as we all know, especially in the first couple seasons of Clone Wars, Ahsoka is very stubborn. Peace is a lie. You can only maintain peace through yourself. Maybe this has had a point. Chapter 30: Obi-Wan Kenobi. Everything slowed around Obi-Wan, a trick of the Force to accelerate the way his mind processed the situation. He blinked, his eyes closed for a fraction of a second, yet enough for thoughts to ripple through his mind as he considered the options before him. 6 guards approached, each with standard rifles except Rugg, who apparently was allowed to use her configurable sniper rifle. The barrel was drawn into a shorter range module for closer combat. Kataran veterans held their positions, the young Nemoidians still with Anakin's comlink and the incriminating datapad. The officials both in front of him and in the audience behind him stayed seated, though all gave off a palpable tension. His lightsaber hung on a guard's belt behind him. That part didn't bother him. The rest, given all of his training with both a lightsaber and the Force, and really the two represented a single intertwined flow. A pure combat situation here would not be that difficult, and the situation played right into one of his favorite fighting techniques. There had been worse, and Obi-Wan figured that even the collective group of guards failed to match the threat of, say, the bounty hunter Jango Fett with his arsenal of Mandalorian weapons and tools. Dang, that's how skilled Jango was? That's crazy. All those guards are no match for someone like Jango? That's crazy. Rugg had specialized training, of course. The rest, though, just guards. Should it come to violence, he felt confident in his abilities. But he had a different goal than simply defeating an opponent. His entire purpose here was to clear the Republic's name and lobby the Trade Federation away from neutrality. Perhaps not into complete alignment with the Republic, but at least to a level where economic sanctions against the Separatists were on the table. Such a discussion had already been a long shot, and the recent revelations made it far more challenging. Using his lightsaber to deal with guards would make it impossible. And then there was Ventress. Was she the one with the lightsabers? How did she factor into all of this? Had it just been the guards, Obi-Wan might have decided to simply put his hands up, relinquish his lightsaber, and strategize a plan for that. But given the unknown variable of someone, Ventress or not, capable of wielding such a specialized weapon, that raised far too many questions to surrender on the spot. Any threat with lightsaber skills meant that protecting his lightsaber was his top non-diplomatic priority, and his only option here was to do his best at imitating Anakin Skywalker. He needed to improvise. Obi-Wan opened his eyes, each of his moves playing out with specific purpose. First, he called his lightsaber to his hand, its blue blade erupting from the hilt. As expected, the guards readied their rifles. Next, he waited. Someone had to take the first shot, and only seconds passed before it came. Not from one of the guards, and definitely not from Rug. The first shot came from Qatar, who had dropped the devices and drawn his pistol. His eyes flared as the bolt exploded out of the gun, a bright red that only intensified the color of his eyes. That was all Obi-Wan needed. Next, he shifted the angle of his lightsaber, tilting it slightly in anticipation. With the bolt less than a meter away, his arms tense, muscles coiling up before releasing with a small and direct push forward. The bolt impacted the lightsaber, a pressure deriving against the weapon before kinetically redirected. A confluence of velocity and angle that led the burst of energy in an entirely new direction. The bolt soared through the room, flying between the helmets of two guards to directly impact the control panel of the back of the door. It tore through the panel's outer covering and circuitry, ending with a brilliant spray of sparks. A contained sprinkle of fireworks that pattered out into the glowing debris falling to the floor. The door slid open, its locking mechanism destroyed. Two of the guards turned to face the now open exit, and while Rug kept her rifle trained on Obi-Wan, she didn't fire. Katara took several more shots, which Obi-Wan deflected into the safest areas possible. The immaculate masonry of the room would have to be collateral damage here. Ventress, though, still didn't move. Obi-Wan gave himself to the Force, and his body rode the ensuing wave, legs and arms moving infinitely faster than their normal pace. He ran and vaulted over the front podiums and landed in motion before slipping between the guards. And though each of them focused on the spot where he used to be, even Rug, Obi-Wan thought he caught the corner of Ventress's eye, a simple tracking glance as he crossed the door's threshold. Halfway down the hall, he returned to normal speed, still moving at an athletic pace, but now clear of immediate danger. The first part of his ad hoc plan was met. He escaped the room to safety without hurting anyone, but now... Go, 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 a voice cried out. It might have been Qatar, though Obi-Wan wasn't sure. In fact, he wasn't sure where to actually go. Curious bystanders started to peer down the hallway, office workers and government employees of all kinds. He ran at normal speed, attentive to the way overexertion of the Force's physical gifts might affect anything from strength to coordination. The way the Force surrounded him as he moved informed his decisions and calculations. An extra burst down the long hall was feasible, but doing so might briefly drain him. Oh, I think he's talking about the Force speed, which actually makes sense because everyone keeps complaining, or is like, why he didn't use Force speed to catch up to Qui-Gon Jinn to help him. I guess this kind of explains it right there. If he did do that, it would have drained too much energy and he would have been useless in combat. So that makes sense. That's pretty cool. No, right now he needed to rely on his own body, at least until an opportunity presented itself. I'm on the target, another voice yelled. That one was distinctive. Stand back, give me a clear shot. Rug, which Obi-Wan guessed meant she'd switch her rifle to sniper mode and zeroed it on him. He stretched out with the Force one more time, not for any physical gifts of strength or speed, but to slow the world down and appraise the situation. Oh shit, they could do that? That's pretty cool. Directly in front of him, civilians stood in the hallway, many shrinking back from the reality of the scene. Around him was a tunnel. The tunnel may have had elegant carvings in the walls, lines of shining minerals embedded into subtle carvings amid the bleached white stone, but regardless of aesthetics, the hallway remained. Nothing but a tunnel with a start and end. To his right, though, there were a series of windows open to overlook the massive courtyard. Minister Yam had called the Grand Theater of Judgment, an open-air arena of sorts, but more important, adjacent to it sat several more nondescript buildings farther into the complex, places less exposed to public view. Those buildings had flat ledges and rooftops behind the spires and slopes of Kea Namoria's architecture. That would help. Getting there required a precise leap at an exact angle to grip onto the buildings hanging down from the arch above. Something that tapped into the way of the Force augmented a body's natural ability to leap. He considered the current placement of all the beings around him, from the guards behind the civilians in front. A Force-assisted burst of speed right now might leave his body exhausted, unable to tap into what he needed to scale such heights. However, Rug had her sniper rifle trained on him, and Obi-Wan was pretty sure that as someone who'd earned her grizzled weariness and commando armor, she didn't miss her shots. That left a choice: trust his body's capabilities under duress or trust Rug. Time snapped back into reality and he dashed forward, lightsaber blade drawn back into its hilt, and took one quick glance back. While Rug had one eye in her scope, the other eye shut for focus. He sensed her reactions, her purpose, her inner moral compass. There was no conflict in Rug. She knew exactly what she was doing. Obi-Wan trusted that her certainty came from the right place. "Shoot the Jedi!" Katar screamed, his voice cracking. "Shoot him now!" Blaster bolts rang out, and though without the boom of a sniper rifle, Obi-Wan knew the fire came from the muzzle of a pistol, not Rug's specialized weapon. "Stand down, Katar!" Rug yelled. "There are civilians in the way." About 20 paces remained until he reached the open window. 19, 18, 17, each step came with precise measurements, an internal calculation both physically to get him there and mentally gambling on Rug's decision. "I've got a line of sight," she said, her voice projecting far enough for Obi-Wan to hear everything. 10, 9, 8. Obi-Wan took one last look behind him. The Force rippled around him, and Obi-Wan put his faith in it, and in Rug. 5, 4, 3. Obi-Wan's angle shifted enough to prepare his body to leap. He felt the Force surrounding him like an ocean current and also powering the physical response within the fibers of his muscles. The sniper rifle erupted a fraction of a second later than it should have, at least if Rug had intended on killing her target. Instead, her extra breath gave Obi-Wan the exact amount of time he needed to leap out the large open window, the rifle bolt whizzing right below his feet as he ascended. "No!" As the Force pushed Obi-Wan's flight, Katar's voice trailed him. Obi-Wan turned his head just briefly enough to make eye contact with the guard, and Ventress, who for whatever reason moved at a casual pace behind. He soared upward, gripping onto an exhaust pipe below the rounded glass dome of a restaurant, shocking the patrons looking down over Zara's garment district. He burst forward, clinging to the holes and ledges from the hanging buildings until he made it over more accessible rooftops of the capital. His hands let go and he dropped, Kea Moya's fog making his hair and beard damp. His boots landed on the ledge of a building, and a second jump took him to the roof. Blaster bolts came from the direction of the government offices, the fire whizzing past him in scattered angles. Figuring out who shot at him and whether Vengeance was involved required the luxury of time, something he didn't have thanks to a fleet of secret remotes rising to his elevation. They propelled forward, and Obi-Wan set on foot again, switching from Anakin's improvisation to his own specialty. He needed a plan. Dang, Obi-Wan's freaking awesome. They slowing down time. I always figured they could do some level of that, cause the force is like imagination. You could do whatever you think of. Oh, I thought someone was talking about treason. Oh shit! Oops. Oopsie. Imagination. That is what the Force can do. Man, I wish I had the Force. Chapter 31. Rug Quornum. As soon as she called out, "I'm on the target," things kicked into motion, and Rug knew exactly how Katar would react even before the trigger was fully pulled. The cross-traffic of civilians gave cover to her story, though she hated the fact that they were potentially in the line of fire, and she was furious at Katar for brandishing a pistol when terrified innocents stood in the way. Government employees who had nothing to do with the investigation or ongoing tensions with the Republic, political or otherwise. As for Obi-Wan, Rug had tracked enough targets to predict where they headed. This marked the first time since a target had Jedi abilities, but the same logic applied: an open window, plenty of options, and easy escape. Rug's job was to make it look good. Risk assessment was an inherent part of Neimoidian culture, the counterpart to their inherent ability to calculate, except in this case. The risk was whether or not she'd accidentally take down a Jedi. The odds clearly showed the path as the marked escape route, and the combination of Obi-Wan's current speed and what she'd witnessed mere moments ago created reasonable assumptions for her approach. All it took was fraction of a second, a mix of practicality and instinct, and Rugg sent the deadly bolt whizzing barely beneath Kenobi's feet as she vaulted up with supernatural ascension. Even for an experienced sniper like herself, such an execution caused her to exhale with relief. He was in your sights, Qatar yelled, and though she'd expect this outburst, she still acted with indignation and the way he lost his composure. Stand down, cadet. Rugg matched Qatar's volume, well aware that everyone watched. Remember who is the veteran here. I don't care. You had the chance to kill the Jedi and you didn't take it. He spent time with Ventress, that much has been clear. Despite Rugg trying to steer him away, just days earlier and his grief seemed so overwhelming, and now he came up with the evidence out of nowhere, without even informing his partner, and his urge to fight training droids had evolved into full-blown murder despite civilian danger. Rugg, it's good to see a nice kid in the morning, that's crazy. Rugg played at the last few actions in her head, from the chase out in the hallway to the moment Obi-Wan vaulted upward, and through it all, he had moved swiftly and carefully around any civilians. That spoke volumes about the Jedi's integrity, and it gave her something to establish moral superiority in front of other Neimoidian guards. Would you prefer me to rain blaster bolts on every innocent person in this hallway, sacrifice them for whatever vengeance you seek? Qatar's scowl spoke just as much as what he was willing to do, and just how far someone or something had pushed him in such a short time. Rugg cursed herself for not taking Ventress more seriously during their meeting while on guard duty. This would avenge our dead. And the fact that Obi-Wan had communicated with one of his Jedi brethren hadn't surprised Rugg. His analysis had to come from somewhere, and the equipment he'd brought certainly didn't seem powerful enough to run the computations and processes necessary to generate his findings. The datapad, however, was another story. He didn't deny it. He said he needed more time, and at the bar, he'd hesitated a few times when they talked about the leads, like he was about to say something then changed his mind. So while he did omit the truth, he likely ran his own risk assessment in doing so. Still, she was just as mad at him as she was at Qatar. Kenobi was onto something. Ransacking his things impedes the investigation. Ventress stepped in front of her, walking uncomfortably close given the circumstances. Perhaps you have your own bias in the situation. I'd call it experience. Experience? Or has guard duty softened your ability to make difficult judgments? Ventress locked eyes with Qatar, at her expression saying more to the young man than her words. I thought you Neimoidians excelled at. She took in a breath before turning back to Rugg. Risk assessment. The agent of Dooku carried a sinister glint in her eyes, one that probably worked in intimidating many she encountered, possibly even the officials in the other room. And in the case of Qatar, it probably drew him to her. But Rugg had seen far worse, done far worse. To let a few side-eyed glances scare her off. I'm not playing your game, she said in a firm tone, with a shake of the head before looking back at the ledge. Qatar huffed, turning to the sky. Where's that transport? Calm chatter with the other guards revealed that seekers pursued the Jedi. But Rugg already knew that a handful of lightly armed aerial remotes wouldn't be able to stop some of Obi-Wan's abilities. No, he must have had a plan and a purpose, and if he really did intend to try for a peaceful resolution, then he wouldn't be jumping on a shuttle to Coruscant. That meant that Rugg needed to get him first. 30 seconds inbound, a voice from the remaining guards called out. Rugg unlocked the side module on the rifle's handguard, then shifted it toward the base, activating a retraction of the elongated barrel. Inside the weapon, further mechanics churned for a quick second, switching eternal plasma calibrations to work at closer range. She swung the rifle across her back, the strap holding tight to her armor. Qatar readied his pistol, things clicking into place as she replaced his ammo clip. 3 other guards moved behind them, ready for the transport. I'll take the next one, Ventress said, giving space as a small floating platform came into view. Rugg ignored anything and everything from Ventress as she stepped onto the windowsill, and dropped below far enough that it came with an inherent trust as she stood next to Qatar. The octagonal platform slowed to a stop, a step away from the open window, and Rugg stepped aboard, the platform dipping under their weight. She grabbed the handrail and steadied herself. Qatar did not, instead only looking up and pointing toward this direction where Obi-Wan had disappeared. 32. Oh, an hour? Chapter 32, Obi-Wan Kenobi. drink. You must drink it. Surprisingly, there hasn't been food in the last couple of chapters. I'm kind of sad. I guess the author at this point wasn't that hungry. Chapter 32, Obi-Wan Kenobi. The Seekers kept pace with Obi-Wan as she leapt from rooftop to rooftop, using the Force to help steady himself on harsh angles or slippery materials. Blaster bolts zoomed by him, the remotes failing to target with much accuracy, though Obi-Wan's ignited lightsaber made the occasional deflection. All of this brought time for options, a stalling technique rather than pure escape. His ship had been confiscated, though Jane off would send the wrong message right now anyway. The appearance of guilt when he wanted discussion. He had no means of communication with Anakin, and while he often disagreed with his former Padawan, sometimes the mere act of debate and counter-arguments produced a solution, and running indefinitely wouldn't help anyone. As he moved, he scanned the area and considered his priorities. The most important thing remained gain an audience with the Trade Federation. And though they already leaned toward not believing him, it marked another chance to plead for de-escalation. And given that the Neimoidian culture made trials public, recordings of his arguments would likely make it out across the galaxy. Broadcasting a message to slow down and think rather than play into the hands that wanted rapid conflict. Bearing any of that, he still needed to find a way to escape. The last time he'd been in a similar situation, captured, isolated, and with few options, the best idea hadn't come from himself or Anakin. Instead, Padme demonstrated a level of forward thinking that bested the Jedi. Using a hairpin to quickly undo her shackles while Master and Apprentice bickered. She had likely been thinking about how to escape from the moment the Geonosian guards hauled them into the arena and the beasts emerged from their gates. That provided all the time they needed to execute her plan. Obi-Wan didn't have a lockpick, but he did have a lightsaber, one that guards would take away the moment they caught him. That made safeguarding it key, and given that he was being chased, protecting it became the current objective. He turned the corner as shots from below echoed upward. The pulsing hum of hover platforms grew louder and each with a number of guards on it. The Seekers elevated, likely to give the guards better line of sight, and Obi-Wan considered the spaces around him. Several buildings reached skyward, and above those hung another block of the bridge city. Structures built downward in an arch that aided in his escape. Overpass connected some of these, enabling foot traffic in all directions. Directly below one of those, in fact, sat the open courtyard for Republic trials, and above that an elaborate tower, something that appeared too thin to actually offer any public functionality. Still, it looked ornate, a curved and reflective glass embedded with an architectural marvel. An idea emerged in Obi-Wan's mind as he recalled the wall where he'd found data chips hidden by a Jedi long ago on the planet Lenahara. He turned, changing the angle of his sprint to move toward the tower. More voices shouted, calls for guards to close in on him from all angles. Obi-Wan tapped into the currents of the Force, feeling the burst of energy rippling through his body as it elevated him halfway up the tower. Well out of the sight lines of the approaching guards, with several seconds of cover, he found a small cutout beneath a window ledge, something that seemed more decorative than functional. His hand and footholds maintained, he grabbed his lightsaber from his belt, then flipped it upside down and jammed it against the wall. The blade activated, now an elongated energy knife digging directly into the side of the structure, and as he jostled the hilt to clear a radius, melted ore oozed out. The weapon went quiet, its blade retracting without ever being visible after carving a space just deep enough to keep a small object secure from prying eyes, like a lightsaber hilt. The weapon lodged and hidden. Obi-Wan once again launched himself with the Force, propelling forward as if the tower had merely been a tool for his escape. Rather than a hiding place for his lightsaber, he landed on an adjacent parapet, civilian observers ducking in fear at his appearance. He swerved around them, then resumed running. Through this time, he purposely let his speed dip. A floating platform of guards approached in the distance, along with two behind him. He hesitated more for appearance than anything else. He searched for places to turn, simply a way to burn off the seconds until capture. Two Seekers emerged, elevating before jetting forward, and though Obi-Wan no longer had his lightsaber to deflect blaster fire, he held up both hands and reached through the Force to grip the machines and smash them into each other. Their crumpled chases dropped, a trail of spark and smoke left in their wake. The action provided good cover for his true intentions, a show of defense that masked the fact that he intended to be captured. Behind him, boots slammed on the stone path, followed by several shouts, all melting together into a verbal mix of aggression. Cover me, Rug yelled, and Obi-Wan turned to see her sprinting toward him, a pistol drawn while her usual rifle sat across her back. A line of guards formed behind her, with rifles aimed directly at Obi-Wan. On the other side, the guards landed and mirrored the formation. Obi-Wan put his hands up and glanced upward at the tower, a quick flick of the force to feel that his lightsaber remained secure in its spot. "Don't move, Jedi," Rug yelled, and though her volume increased, her voice carried a level tone. She slowed her approach, pistol trained on him as she got closer. "Hands behind your back," she said, her voice low enough that barely heard it over the altitude's winds and the humming repulsors of the floating guard platforms. "I appreciate what you did in the hallway," Obi-Wan said without resistance. Rug holstered her pistol and pulled out a pair of energy shackles. She moved without speaking, first binding Obi-Wan's left hand, then the right. "Why didn't you tell me about the data pad?" "I need to know if it was authentic or not." The binders clicked into place, a pressure now gripping Obi-Wan's wrist. "If you wanted me to trust you," she said, "you should have been honest with me." A low hum vibrated with the shackles, the frequency of their energy, subtle enough that perhaps only he picked up on it. "You're right. I apologize for that." "No laser sword," Rugg said, lowering her voice even further as the guards approached. "I'm improvising. Listen." Obi-Wan relaxed, shifting into a defeated posture, clearing enough for others to see. "Yes, the data points to the Republic, but we don't know why yet. Presenting it as fact without context would escalate things beyond repair. I need a chance." "They sound like they've made up their minds." "A chance is not a guarantee," Obi-Wan said over his shoulders. "Nothing is absolute, except for not taking that chance." "Well then," Rugg patted him on the back, "I'll do my best to help." "You," Qatar called, the single word practically a taunt, and though every rifle from the armed guards pointed at him, the young Nemoidian clearly moved out of step from the group. A tension rippled through Obi-Wan's body, and he reached out, dipping into the currents of the Force to sense whether Qatar was close to pulling the trigger. "Did you really think your tricks could help you escape?" "Stand down, Qatar. He's under arrest. I have apprehended him." "No," Qatar moved forward, stepping onto Obi-Wan's peripheral vision, but Rugg moved to block him, her shoulders now nearly touching his. "He is a prisoner. He will stand trial in the royal court of Kea Nemoidia. Your job here is done." "She is correct," Ventress said, appearing from behind the row of guards. She pulled back her hood, though her cloak remained wrapped around her as she walked forward. "The Jedi will submit. It is what they do. But I do have one question for you." Ventress extended a pale finger at Rugg. "Where is his lightsaber?" To this point, Obi-Wan had placed his faith in Rugg, starting with their initial encounter on the surface of Kea Nemoidia and continuing all the way to her initially ill-timed shot in the alleyway. Now he waited for something more subtle than anything involving blaster fire. What would Rugg say about his weapon? "Damaged, possibly destroyed. If you check the surrounding grounds, you will likely find its remains," Obi-Wan said, giving Rugg a lead to work with. "Your seekers shot it out of my hand." "Damaged, possibly destroyed? What kind of Jedi are you? If mere remotes can destroy a weapon, I thought you were a Jedi Master. Being chased by guards and seekers at high altitude is not part of standard Jedi training." Ventress clicked her tongue as she began pacing around them. "Quite convenient if you think about it." "I can confirm," Rugg said, moving a step closer to Ventress. "I saw it happen. You can check the hall security recording. Though it happened up there," she gestured to the tall adjacent tower. "I'm not sure the cams have the angle." "Are you certain that is what you saw, and you are not under the influence of a Jedi mind trick?" "Only the strong can resist that." The two nearly collided in front of Obi-Wan, Ventress staring Rugg down. But Rugg's orange-red eyes never blinked, never lost focus in a way that shouldn't have surprised him. Someone with possible decades of commando experience likely couldn't be intimidated, especially someone with a strong moral compass. "I'm certain," Rugg said, taking a step further, until she was nearly face-to-face with Ventress, checking the security recording. They stood, only the wind swirling between them as everyone held their positions, the guards, Qatar, and Obi-Wan. He watched the only movement between the two women coming from the rhythm of their breathing. Ventress looked Rugg up and down, then eyed Obi-Wan without turning. "As a representative of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, do you have a problem with what I've done?" Rugg finally asked. "I trust your judgment," Ventress said slowly. She took several steps back, arms out, then walked up to Obi-Wan just as guard rifles nudged him to move. She leaned in close and spoke directly in his ears. "I was pleased to see you See your work up close, Master Kenobi. She reached up and tossed up the long locks of her hair dangling over his neck. Count Dooku was right. You're quite impressive. Compliments by the lady. Robot Man got his drip. Ooh. Chapter 23, Anakin Skywalker. The Norker's console beeped again, and yet again Anakin chose to ignore it. Shouldn't you check that? Mill asked. It's beeped 6 times now. 7 times actually. The first time Mill had been in the back trying to learn how to speak astromech with R2-D2. They tunneled through hyperspace, the swirling bright mix of blue and white flashing over the cockpit. Going through hyperspace in a small freighter with questionable integrity made for a completely different experience for the youngling. And though Anakin relished feeling the rattle of the deck plates and the rumble of propulsion systems, the difference between official Republic equipment and the way everyone else lived caught Mill off guard. It's nothing, Anakin said. Beeping usually indicates something. Mill leaned forward over Anakin's shoulder and squinted. Bad, right? In this case, it was bad, but not like bad mechanical failure or low fuel. This was a comm signal, and though Anakin wouldn't know who it was exactly until he opened the channel, he had a sneaking suspicion that it came from a clone commander. Now was the problem with making it up as he went along. Most of the practical logistics simply never came up. Obi-Wan had plans built upon strategies built upon guidelines. Even when he had to come up with something on the fly, Padme worked with much in the same way. And Chancellor Palpatine, well, he wouldn't have gotten to where he was today if he hadn't set up his plan in advance. That is very true. The 3 most important people in Anakin's life all worked efficiently and methodically. And then there was him, like the sun at the center of that solar system, pulling them all out of balance with his impulsive, driven decisions. Padme never gave him grief about it, but he'd started to recognize what her half smiles meant when an idea popped into his head. Obi-Wan, on the other hand, always made a comment at the end. It usually came as a 1-2 punch, the first hit being a scold for not listening, and the second being astonishment for Anakin pulling off whatever little miracle he'd attempted. And on very rare occasions, Obi-Wan would follow that with a bit of gratitude. Bad is relative, Anakin said. Is this something I learned as a Padawan? Not likely. How much pilot training do you have? Mill's head tilted, and she raised one eyebrow. Okay, fair point. Well, every control panel is different, but there are a lot of similarities. The beeping started again, a simple red light flashing over the navigational chart, like that particular beep and light. And someone trying to reach us over the ship's comms. Someone? You mean? Most likely, Anakin said. It makes sense. I mean, the 302nd and Durban weren't exactly going to ignore that we didn't come back. I thought you took care of that. I may have skipped that part in my plan. Hey, Anakin said, pointing at her with a laugh. You were supposed to go back to the cruiser. I just made up the rest as I went along. They must have figured out who we bartered with and gotten the ship's comm codes. So maybe we'll just tell them what we're doing. The clones listen to you. That was true. Ever since attaining the rank of Jedi Knight, the clones had fallen into place. And even if Durban was involved, perhaps some blustery, vague talk could temporarily smooth it over. I just realized there's no Captain Rex here yet. So I guess he didn't meet Captain Rex yet. But he's definitely probably running around somewhere in the 501st. Okay, Anakin said, let's try it your way. He flickered the flashing button and a small beam shot up above the council, the holographic image forming into existence. Anakin's hopes lay with Theo, Raptor, or Sparks, but a worst-case scenario of annoyed Durban, when heard, was adorable. What he got, though, moved the needle beyond the worst-case scenario. Skywalker, the voice said with a familiar disdain before the image fully assembled. Where are you? Master Windu, Mills said with a gasp. Anakin resisted his urge to roll his eyes. Master Windu, Anakin kept his tone flat and diplomatic, the typical default he reverted to whenever talking to any Jedi, even Obi-Wan, though their last few conversations felt like they started to evolve past that. I'm sorry, your transmission's broken up. Skywalker, repeat your destination, which he couldn't reveal. He couldn't even pay coy with it. The smallest hint would likely push the council towards suspecting his destination. With Obi-Wan in a dangerous situation and any word of Republic involvement likely to dial tensions up even further, the Senate Chancellor and the Jedi all had to stay out of this. not just for Obi-Wan's sake, but for the sake of the war that threatened to spiral out of control. He needed to think fast. We're on our way to. He let his words fade out while he rotated the small knob for comms frequency stabilizer. There's a lot of interference right now in ion storms, but I have the youngling Mill Alabeth with me. She is safe. I'll check in as soon as we land. What was that? Anakin twisted the knob again, static interrupting the signal and causing lions to jab in and out of Mace's hologram. Over his shoulder, Mill laughed, and Anakin turned to shoot her a be quiet glance, not out of scolding, but to keep up appearances. But they locked eyes and her grin became infectious, so much so that he put his gloved hand over his mouth to prevent his near laugh from transmitting across the galaxy to Jedi Order's most revered fighter. Because even though Anakin excelled at improvising under duress, that applied only to combat situations. In this case, his action came off as no more than a childhood prank on the Jedi's most powerful warrior, which was pretty funny in itself. Repeat your destination. Understood, Master. He let go of the knob and the transmission stabilized. I have the youngling Mill Alabeth with me. She is safe. Please send my apologies to the 302nd and Dearborn when heard. We got pulled away from the Discovery in an urgent issue on Langston and the ship's comms aren't stable. Skywalker, where are you going? Mace Windu always spoke with quiet intensity, but now the venerable master's frustration manifested into an emerging growl. In all of the challenges that Mace had faced down recently, from taking down Jango Fett with a single lightsaber swipe to staring down an overwhelming wave of super battle droids on Dantooine, Anakin gave himself a silent pat on the back. He'd definitely have to tell Padme about this. Assuming they all survived, Commander Theo, Mace said to a clone off-cam, "Get me a tracking lock on this transmission." "Right away, sir," the clone responded. "We're hitting a huge ion storm now. I will check in as soon as Anakin cut off the transmission there, Mace's burning eyes and tight scowl suddenly disappearing. For several seconds, the only sound in the ship came from the frequent rattling of deck plates, a regular tink-tink-tink that tapped in an almost musical pattern as the ship flew through the brilliant tunnel of the hyperspace. Finally, Mill broke the silence. "Well," she said. Anakin looked up to see the whites of lightspeed reflecting off her tan cheeks and pale horns. That didn't go good." "Don't worry," Anakin said. "You're not in trouble. If anything, I'm going to be the one in trouble. But that's alright." The panel showed the Navicomputer's flight path to Kid Moria about half a day's journey left, though possibly longer given the shuttle might fly apart at any minute. "I'm used to it." R2-D2 rolled in behind them, whistling a lecture at him. "Takes one to know one, R2," the droid whistled in return before swiveling his head and looking at Mill. "Are assignments always like this?" Mill asked as she settled into the passenger seat. "I don't know," Anakin said. He leaned back into his seat, the torn leather crinkling as he sank into the warm padding. "I've only been a Jedi Knight for a short time." "R2?" R2 beeped, this time without the sass. "Show us everything you know about Kayla Nemoidia." An affirmative series of chirps came through, followed by a hollow projection of the planet. The console beeped again, an incoming transmission that Anakin didn't dare answer. He reached over to mute it, and as he did, he noticed some of Langston's blue sand was still stuck in the straps of his glove. Sand. It got everywhere. It really does. The beep continued. Anakin could only assume that it was Master Windu, who had more than enough patience to keep this up for the entire duration of their journey. But even if you realized their ultimate destination is Kayla Nemoidia, the Council would abide by mission parameters and avoid any confrontations. That was the difference between them and Anakin. Anakin smirked at such a thought. He clicked the button to the left of the flashing indicator, setting the Noric's incoming transmission to silent for now. Consequences could be dealt with upon returning to Coruscant, but with Master Windu already irritated, they'd better save Obi-Wan, because if they came back empty-handed, it might be worse than losing his arm. Damn. But Edna says no capes. Edna is wrong, always capes. Non-sassing beeps. No capes. See, Edna wasn't giving cool people capes. She gave those whack job capes. They didn't know how to use capes properly in that world. Capes are clearly cool and everyone should have capes. She's right that capes have no benefits in combat, but it has all benefits in style. That's right. See, nobody in that universe had style, including what's his name? The main villain. His name escapes me again. He had no swag, so of course he died. And plus, you see Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange cape is functional and it's cool. Chapter 34, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Four plain smooth walls surrounded Obi-Wan, lacking the opulence of most Kaedamoya's other architecture. Micro lights must have been embedded within the top of the wall, providing an ambient illumination to the green-gray holding cell, and the door itself appeared to be a simple metal slab with a locking mechanism, probably something capable of withstanding a significant brute force or blaster fire. Not that Obi-Wan had any intentions of escaping. He'd been in far worse situations, and in every case a solution presented itself. Even that nest of Gundarks, though he'd had Anakin with him then. That harrowing escape had been filled with claws and teeth, dirt and chaos, yet once they stopped arguing about who went first, Obi-Wan and Anakin had fought and moved effortlessly on their way out. Equal parts collaborators and single fighting unit. Even when Anakin was younger, they moved in sync, as if their verbal jousting was a necessary part of their relationship, balancing their natural instincts for combat. But now nothing tethered them. The very mission came with the order of isolation. Every step here kept him alone by design, and even when he had the choice, he chose to keep Anakin at arm's length. The thing was, every single time he tried to keep Anakin away, he found the way in. That was simply who Anakin Skywalker was. Years ago, when Anakin was still early in his Padawan time, Obi-Wan had been assigned a minor investigation to a dead star system, something so ancient that the remaining dwarf lingered at nearing absolute zero temperatures. Oh, I think they're mentioning the comic book. This is the comic book where Obi-Wan and Anakin went to a planet to investigate. I can't remember. It was a beacon or some kind of war, and Anakin was thinking about leaving the Jedi Order, and he was about to, but then Obi-Wan kind of helped him come to the conclusion that he could probably do more good with the Jedi than not with the Jedi, which that ended up being not true. Zero temperatures. He intended to fly there alone, despite his discomfort about paddling himself due to the strange quantum fluctuation and gravity wells. But halfway through the hyperspace journey, he heard the strangest noise coming from beneath one of the panels by the port-sided thruster, snoring. Obi-Wan had lifted the metal access panel only to find 12-year-old Anakin stowed away, having fallen asleep in the warm ambience and rumbling metal above the sublight drive, the heat reminding him of a Tatooine evening. I didn't want to stay at the temple, he said, before explaining his elaborate plan to hide on board. Besides, you said you promised Master Qui-Gon you'd protect me. Which he had. Since you're here, Obi-Wan had told him with a sigh, you might as well take a look. And when they arrived at their destination, he'd taken it as an opportunity, the rare privilege of viewing such a scientific impossibility, doubling as a good reminder of the Jedi Code regarding attachment and letting go. A lesson that over time even stars burned out. Out there in the most lifeless regions of space, Anakin had simply found a way to find him. Obi-Wan and Anakin and Obi-Wan. The mentor who took careful measured steps, the Padawan who charged forward with explosive power and it seemed ridiculous luck. Despite their age difference, despite their rank difference, despite their personality difference, they always got the job done. But that was under the guise of master and apprentice. This time was different. They were equals now, their link purposely broken. Too many gears turning the galaxy right now, and everyone in the Republic slotted into a specific purpose to help and end the war. They had responsibilities and mission dependent on them staying apart. Obi-Wan laughed at the mysterious twists and turns of the Force. Their first time truly apart, not as easy as one off to a remote system while the other had a task on Coruscant, but pulled in completely different directions. And of course, every plan that he tried to conjure up came with the caveat, if only Anakin were here. If only Anakin could discover more about Ventress or tap into the Neimoidian public broadcast system to provide more context to the masses, or help Rug out with her lead, or investigate further, finding some possible way to identify a falsehood about the Datapad. That was what Anakin did, find a way. They didn't even need to directly attack the situation together, but Anakin's resourcefulness, stubbornness, and impulsiveness, his sheer Anakinness, felt necessary at this point. Oh, Obi-Wan's missing Anakin. Without it, Obi-Wan may as well have been flying blind or missing a limb, or in this case, possibly damning the Republic to consequences too great to contemplate, while dishonoring the memory of thousands of dead from Katasura and quite possibly make himself complicit in the whole thing. All because he did this without Anakin, without their constant pushing and reining in of each other's boundaries. And Obi-Wan wondered, If Qui-Gon had foreseen all of this, not just his own loss at the hands of the vicious Sith Lord on Naboo, but the fact that Qui-Gon could forever tie two opposing forces together, their partnership always edging towards spinning out of control, but always find a way to make a happy landing. Always a happy landing. It took not it took it took not having the intrinsic link to Anakin for Obi-Wan to finally see how much they needed each other. Not just for a strategic level, but to keep each other in check. Obi-Wan's tactical diplomacy pulling in Anakin's impossible drive and Anakin's overwhelming everythingness, removing a layer of Obi-Wan's measured clinical thinking. If he survived this, perhaps he'd even tell Anakin someday. Though really, it might work better if he didn't. Anakin's ego didn't need any more feeding. And besides, he needed to get out of this first. Obi-Wan tapped into the Force, trying to sense if his lightsaber remained where he planted it, but without knowing exactly where he was in relation to that tower. Such a search proved fruitless. He resigned himself to the fact that this weapon wouldn't be accessible until the trial actually occurred in the courtyard. Until then, all he could do is focus on what he might say to sway those who listen. The local government, the Morning Kedamordian public, the Trade Federation leaders, most likely the Republic, Palpatine, the Senate, the Jedi, all of the HoloNet, even if it was on an intercepted signal, and quite likely Count Dooku and Nute Gunray. What might convince every single one of those different factions that somehow, somewhere, there was more to this, and in the end, peace was the solution. That wasn't something he discussed with Anakin. He just relied on Anakin for the rest of it. But if his former Padawan learned anything from his promotion, or at the very least Geonosis, it'd be understanding that the responsibilities of a Jedi Knight actually involved listening. In the quiet confines of the cell, Obi-Wan found himself doing something as silly as wishing things were different when he needed Anakin most. Obi-Wan let that feeling pass, knowing that an energy put into those thoughts would likely be wasted. He sat on the floor with nothing but himself and the four walls, cross-legged and straight-backed, then closed his eyes, his sense of self-release, given into something much greater than an individual body and mind, all in search of wisdom and a solution to an impossible problem. Dang, he's missing his buddy. Yeah, if he didn't go off to kill Grievous at the end and he stayed with Anakin, I think he could have stopped Anakin from becoming evil. But so is the Force. Alright, this will be our last chapter, and then we'll call it a day. Chapter 35, Asajj Ventress. The bulk of Zara's architecture was ornate, all intricate curves and immaculate carvings, much like the tower by which they chased Kenobi. All such a waste of resources. A facade to the shield population from the realities of a cruel life. Here in the industrial district just west of the capital, Ventress felt much more at home. Everything from the streets to the small storage room she rented for her handful of credits felt completely functional, nothing extravagant or excessive. Oh, hold on, I forgot to put my background music on. Whoopsie. I almost forgot. These damn commercials. Unlimited power. Got a vibe for that last chapter. Yeah, I know, right? These damn YouTube commercials. I hate when you can't skip the ads. It's ridiculous. There we go. We live for the last chapter. Which was why she only had one thing in the room. Her surroundings offered her a simple means to get the job done, which is why she only had one thing in the room. She opened the door, and the room's eternal sensors detected her as she walked inside. Katara followed behind her, but one automated illumination filled the space. She turned to find him examining his blaster. "Something wrong with your weapon?" Ventress asked. "I think so." He held it out as if targeting with his sights, then checked the alignment on a small scope again. "I had Kenobi lined up. He must have gotten lucky." The bravado in his words caused Ventress to laugh, something that clearly stunned the young guard. She admired his confidence, a trait that was likely amplified by the surge of fury and despair he felt since the Katasura incident. But of course it was foolish. I am certain that a single blaster is no match for a Jedi Knight. If Kenobi was trying, you would have known. She walked in front of him. Had you survived, that is. Katar turned, his permanent scowl seemingly even more pronounced. How would you know? You're just a diplomat. Oh, is that what you think? Isn't that why you're here, to observe the Jedi emissary? He asked, his voice echoing off the simple metal walls that offered a completely opposite take from the exquisite Kemodia governmental complexes that they'd spent time in. She's paced the room, considering the challenge presented by his question, not because they were difficult to answer, but because there were so many choices. Ventress weighed the possibilities, how she might get the most out of his naivety. Her goal had been very clear since Count Dooku ordered her to fly to Kemodia, and with Kenobi about to face trial, exposing the two-faced nature of the Jedi Order and the Republic was well on its way. Dooku's instructions lacked specifics, though. Something he often did, and Ventress understood why. This was not just a test of her physical gifts or her force abilities. He wanted to see her strategize, improvising in the face of opportunity. And this was an opportunity. Ventress promised herself she'd make the most of it. Just a diplomat, she said, stepping away from him. With her back turned, she listened, gauging his reaction as the next seconds unfolded. With one hand, she drew back her long cloak, and with the other fingers gripped one metal hilt attached to her belt and curved of its form against her palm. She unlatched it and stayed ready, holding the weapon in front of her. Or perhaps more. A brilliant crimson glow emerged from the hilt, the distinct explosive discharge and ensuing hum now filling the room. Do you see? Behind her, a quick shuffling noise told her that Katar did not expect that, and now he even held his blaster up. He really was obedient after all. When she told him to stand guard against outside Kenobi's room during her search, she figured he must have taken a peek. But no, he must have stayed in the hall the whole time, completely missing her lightsaber slash on the secure equipment case. She allowed herself of a quick, short grin before returning to neutral and facing him. I understand the ways of the Jedi, and I come prepared to defend myself. They are volatile, unpredictable, stealthy. She took 2 more steps toward Katar, the blade close enough to reflect off his pistol's metal body. Untrustworthy. You have their weapon. That is one way to look at it, but you have a pistol. How many in the Republic have a pistol? How many people in the Outer Rim, in the wild space, have a pistol? A weapon is a weapon, regardless of training or skill. Take a closer look. She angled the red blade his way, the tip of it now close enough that he winced at the heat burning off of it. Ask yourself, have I broken your trust in any way? You saw the data pad, you saw the comment, you heard the transmission from Kenobi's partner confirming the evidence. This is all here, waiting for you. I have lifted the veil for you to see, haven't I? In a gradual, slow gesture, Katar lowered his pistol, though it remained in his hand. In return, Ventress deactivated her lightsaber, its deep red no longer tinting the space. Now I want you to think about your partner. Rug? Katar asked, a puzzled look on his face. What about her? Do you trust her? Of course I trust her, he said. His gaze fell to the floor, a head shake that showed this struck a nerve. Count Dooku often spoke of the importance of opportunity, of knowing when to force a moment out of nothing, then take it before it slipped away. Now was one of those opportunities. Ruggs looked after me ever since I joined up. Interesting, Ventress said, her head cocked at an angle. Since you joined, I can understand that, but what about since Kenobi arrived? Any behavior that might seem out of character? Katar slowly turned his head to Ventress, the room's harsh flickering light tilting the shadows cast by his helmet over his cheeks. She tried to keep you away from me, hasn't she? She, Katar started, knew I'd been exhausted. She was just encouraging me to take care of myself, because Kemodia needs us. Even as he said the excuse, Katar's tone gave away that he was reconsidering it all. Ventress had him. The Jedi, she said, are known to be able to influence the emotions, even thoughts of others. Has Rug acted differently since Kenobi has been here? She's a decorated commando with elite training and a custom weapon, and yet, what happened when Kenobi ran? Katar's mouth opened, and over the buzz of the room's lighting, she heard a low, guttural sound as he tried to form words. Ventress waited, more than happy to let him come to the conclusion himself. She missed, he finally said. Loyalty, Ventress said in a slow, controlled cadence, can be exploited. Katar took a single step back, a reaction out of impulse rather than decision, and now Ventress would move in for the finishing blow. If you trust her, then you'll do whatever it takes to break the hold that Kenobi has over her. to break the hold that the Jedi and the Republic have over Neimoidians. You can do this, Qatar. You can be the one. Just as he had fallen back, she moved forward, keeping a very specific distance to stay in his space, in his line of sight. How do you think Kenobi's trial would go? The evidence is damning, he said softly. Damning? That is different from certainty, isn't it? At this point, Qatar might have agreed with anything Ventress said, but her words continued their assault, clipping away at his thoughts and concerns until she led him like a youngling following a toy. The Jedi are powerful. Their ability to sway minds is unfathomable to those that don't understand their kind. To think of their order, indoctrinating children fresh out of the womb and their parents, they simply let them leave forever. Think of what Newt Gunray said about this encounter on Naboo. The frightening speed and power, and now the suddenly transition from peacekeepers, she said with derision, to soldiers commanding the military. Is that not concerning to you? It is. Qatar's voice came out as a mere whisper. Ventress sensed it, not just from the emotion rippling off of him, but from the way his entire body tensed, the way his lip curled, the way his eyes stayed shut as the questions pierced through him. He was on the edge of giving in to her, something that happened so easily that she almost laughed at it. Count Dooku wanted to test her, and yet this was no challenge at all. Kadasura had created a creature seeking faith in something regardless of what it was. All she had to do was be there for him. You care about your people, your planet, the Trade Federation. Then what risk are you willing to take to ensure their safety, to make a statement that will forever sway them away from the Republic? With Qatar's eyes still closed, she walked over to the case of explosive materials and put her hand on the biometric reader. Or perhaps more than a statement. It beeped and whirred, locking mechanisms undoing before she lifted the case open. Stacks of a pliable and very volatile or orange compound just waited to be wired into a detonator. You must calculate the risks, Ventress said, and then make a choice. Qatar opened his eyes and Ventress stared back right at him. Ventress is a very untrustworthy bitch. And that's the end of chapter 35. So we'll end it there on chapter 36, Anakin Skywalker. So what today is? Technically Wednesday. So yeah, by Thursday or maybe even Friday we'll be finished. So just in time for Kenobi. But we'll call it a day. That was Star Wars Brotherhood. Thank you, Michi and Beanie, for joining me this late night. You late night birds. I see. I hope to see you guys later. You guys get some sleep, even though you're probably gonna be like me and be like zombies. Oh, and Pop, I rewatched your last stream. I was talking to my mom, so I didn't hear anything, but I did post my website in the chat for the shout out. LOL. Oh no, yeah, that's no problem. Worth watching that Grievous video again. Always a pleasure. I love watching the old Clone Wars. Sometimes when I'm just bored, I just put it on and watch it again. It's on Disney Plus too. They have all of the episodes on it to watch the old Clone Wars. But alright, I'll see you guys